So, hi everybody and welcome back. This is a C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 159, and in this video we continue with our class. In our last video we created here this class lamp because I wanted simulated an object which is a lamp, and to simulate this world object I created just a class lamp. And now my lamp has some declarations here, some variable declarations, you can see some function declarations, and we talked also about some special functions declarations which we called getter and setter, and this getter and setter I put also in a special place because there could be many getters and setters, and I want also them collected in one place so that I don't have to search here around. And in this video, I want to talk about again a function which is a special function, and it is called a constructor. It's very special. But before we can call about the constructor, a reminder from the last video, I said from now on all time when you create a variable, let's create a variable. For example, I want to create a type lamp, which I created here. And how I create this again, I have to know where this lamp is. My class name is lamp, which means my type is lamp. And of course I have to check if it's input in a namespace or it is a nested class or something like that. So yes, I have to check it, and if I know it, then I know that I have to call this first. And yes, let's do it here. And then I know this is the namespace and my class lamp is in this namespace. This is now my type. And now I can call create a variable with this type like we did it all time. Let's call it Wonder Woman's lamp here, because this lamp is for the Wonder Woman's lamp. And you can see this kind of creation of a variable we did all time in this tutorial, similar like what I did all time. Let me show you. Std string my name and coder. The only difference here is here I use an initializer as well, and here it is just a declaration. So if I delete this initializer here, then I have the same as this what we did here. And you can see here I created a variable, and here is a class, and this class is here in this std namespace. The same I did here. I don't know why the color is not coming here. The same is here. You can see I created here a variable. Here is the class, and this class is in the namespace electrician. And now I also said you have to analyze these classes, but here a very big hint for the future. Of course, you don't have to read all the details in this class. What I mean, a class can be very, very big, can have more than 500 declarations, and probably you are not interested in this 500 declarations. Perhaps you are only interested in 2 or 3 declarations which you want use or definitions, and all the other 497 declarations you actually don't care, which means you don't have to read them all through. And what you do is normally in the future you still open this class up. You have to find this class, open this up, and then before you go and start to read and analyze this class, you go online search and try to find out what you want to know. For example, the string class, when anyone is talking about concatenation of words, then you can go to the internet, search concatenation with strings, and then they will give you a hint, and then you can jump into the string class and find exactly the function which has this concatenation implemented. And why is this so important just to figure out that what you need? Because like I said, if this has 500 entries, that can take so much time just to scroll down, so many things there are, and you are only interested in 3 things. And what you can do is you can create then your own string class, for example my personal string class, and then just copy these 3 strings which you are really interested in your own string and use your own string class instead of this string. Of course, then you have not all the options what this string has, but this is anyway only for learning purposes, which means you copy out all the declarations which you need, which means you analyze only these 3 declarations. You can add then your own functionality to your own string class, and if you are unhappy, you can still use the string class as well. So it is optional and very nice. The important thing is for the future, don't read all the details. That's not the real thing what you have to do. The thing is you should concentrate on that what you need for your project. For example, in future we will talk also about getting words from a database and to read words, write words, and so thing. Then we need concatenation words and so something, and then we search especially this kind of functions in a string class or in another class. And we are not going to read all the things, but we have find this concatenation rules and see if this is fitting our needs. If not, we change them or we define them on our own. So with that said, that's enough. Let's concentrate us to our topic for this video, which is again function, but like I said, a special function, which are constructors. And important thing is here, when we watch our class here, which I created, which is a very small class, that's very nice. Here is actually no constructor. But first of all, what is a constructor? Let's read the definition of a constructor. And here we have default constructor, and here we have a general constructor. And here it says we will skip this member initialization for now, that we will make in the next video, but we will talk about constructors now. And the first line, it says here, constructor is a special non-static member function. So that's a good news. Why is this a good news? Because a constructor is just a function, and we know what a function is, right? A function has a return type, void, or a type. It has a function name which we can choose. It can has parameters like so, and we have a function body. And a constructor is a member function. A member function means just it is placed in a class. So it is just a class. This one is also a member function. This one is a non-static member function. These are all non-static member functions. That is a good news. So it is the same like that, but it has some special rules of a class that is used, and here is the use case that is used to initialize objects of its class type. So that, what is it doing, this constructor? It is initializing objects of its class type. So what does this mean? That very simple. It means if you create here a variable like I did here, not with this one, with this one here, if you create here a variable, let's create here one more, then the constructor's job is, when I create here a new variable, for example, coder's lamp now, here I created now this variable, the constructor's job is now to initialize this variable here, because this is my object now. And what means initialize an object? That means just I can use this variable. Because the class, like I said, I can't use a class. But if I create a variable now, I can use the class with this variable. Here, I can go write coder's lamp, and I can use the dot, which is the access specifier. And now you can see here are the public available variables, functions, and whatever. These are the things which I can use from outside the class. Careful, why I say outside the class means there are things which I can also use inside the class, because there are private things which you can only use inside. But here, important, I have created a variable, and with this variable I have now access to the class. I can set it and I can form my variable like I want to set some default, not default values, set other values. For example, instead little lamp, I would say what I need in my project and the voltage and so on. But important is now here, let's go back. It says we need this, right? It says here we need this constructor. It's very important because the job is used to initialize objects of this class type. But here, when you watch carefully in my example, here is no constructor. Wait a minute. We said it is very important, right? It's a very important. Constructor is a function which is very important to initialize this variable, and actually it worked anyhow. But I have no constructor here. Here is no constructor. And that is also a special case. If a class like in my case, has not a constructor provided from the programmer, in this case from me, because I have not implemented a constructor, the compiler, which is when I start here on top, this compiler, the compiler will go, for example, to this line. Then the compiler say, oh, you are creating a variable. Okay, I will check if you can create this variable. So what the compiler do is it goes here to this lamp and it tries to find your lamp first, this class here. It says, oh, this lamp is an electrician. Okay, the compiler is jumping to electrician. And in electrician, it is trying to find the lamp. Yes, I found it. And then here in this body, the compiler says, okay, now I try to find the constructor because it's very, very important. But I can't find a constructor because this programmer has not provided a constructor, and normally you should provide a constructor. So what does the compiler do is, if there is no constructor provided, it will create for you a implicit constructor. Implicit constructor means provided by the compiler, which is a very basic default constructor. And that is the reason why we can make this one, or we could not make use this class here, and we could not create this variable here. This implicit constructor means just, yes, you have not provided anything, but I will provide for you one. So that's also a very special case about this constructor. So now I talked so much about constructors. Let's create a constructor. It's time for us to create a constructor. And when we go here down a little bit more, here is the syntax. And of course, we will use the syntax like all time. And we go here and let's provide a constructor which is not implicit, which is created by us, by the programmer. And here I make again a special section because constructor can a class can has also not one function constructor. We can have more than one constructor. Like I said, there is something like called a default constructor. There is also a non-default constructor, and so on. So which means we can have more constructors. That's why we make here again a special section, so we get not confused all time with the other things here. And now I need what? First of all, I define an access specifier because, like I said, a class has all time this access specifier. Do you want that constructor should be public, protected, or private? A constructor should be normally all time public. Why? Very simple, because here you want create this here this variable at this point, and it means just actually you are not even calling this one, but it should be general public because means it should be accessed from outside. So anyway, that's not very important, just make it. Perhaps you can change this later, but at start as a beginner we make it public. And now we use the constructor definition, which is this one here, add a syntax. And now I said a constructor is just a function, right? Has a function, a normal function, but a constructor is not a normal function. We learned this by now because we see a constructor has a special job for the class to construct this variable anyhow. And it has even more special rules because this normal function here has a return type. Like I said, we can choose the name, we can choose the parameters and the body. And when we read now here this definition, we have a problem at the start. At the start it says no return type. So I mean, normally it would start now with a return type or something, or void at least, because void is no return type. But here the constructor has no void and has no return type, which means we can't use a return type in constructors like we did in function with return type. So constructors have this not, and void also not. A constructor starts directly with a name, and this name it called a class name, and this class name is again special. Why is this again special? because this function name, for example, here, I can choose. I can just find anything which suits my needs. And then I say, yes, that's okay. But here it says the constructor's name is special. And the special name, it's all time the class name. You can't change it. So you can't choose anything. It is all time the class name, which makes us easy. So we can identify a constructor very, very easy. Because when you see, what is the class name first? The class name is here on top. We have here class, and we named the class name lamp in my case. So my class name is just this lamp. Let's copy this because I'm so lazy again. And I can use this. Okay, lamp is my class name. Then I use this parameter list here. Okay, let's copy this one here. And this parameters, let's do this later because this one is an optional. And yeah, this definition is almost finished. And then we have here, okay, this one we have, and then we have here noch this exception specifier, which is optional. I skip this. Attribute optional, I skip this as well. And then it's similar to our function. We have here just a function body. So when we compare now this constructor function with a normal function like this one, we can see it looks only a little bit different. It has no return type, which means, and no void type, and this kind of stuff. And the class name, like I said before, it is all time the class name. Lamp, if your class name here and the constructor lamp, they are all time the same. That's very important, and it makes also easy to find a constructor, because if you see a function that starts with your class name, then you know it's the constructor by default. And this here, what you see right now here, is a special kind of constructor. It is called the default constructor. Let's write here default constructor, because there are also other constructors which are not the default constructor. So let's compare it again with the example what we have. Before I created this constructor here, right? This kind of stuff worked. And now I created this kind of constructor. I provided this constructor now, so the compiler will not create this one, but the compiler would exactly create something like this one too. It will create also a default constructor, and is when the compiler is creating this one, it's called implicit constructor. And in this case, because I provided this one, now the compiler will not create this one, because the compiler will go again later in my body, try to find a constructor, and says, oh, I found this time a constructor here, the lamp. And I will now follow the rules of this constructor, which means if you create this variable, it will check the rules what this constructor is telling. And this default constructor is telling nothing here. Absolute nothing. But it is telling something. It is telling, yes, you can create this variable, because this constructor, what you can see, is exactly what the implicit constructor is doing. So when I start this one here, you can see there is no error. But how we can make it a little bit more visible? So I said, how we know it is calling really this one? And we can, of course, use the body, because it is the constructor is still a function. It looks only a little bit different, right? Only this one, but it's still similar to a function. And of course, in a body, I can print out something. I am the default constructor, for example. Here, I'm the default constructor. Now, let's make a new line. It's better. And with that said, we can test this now. I start this, and you see we have now 2 times this code, because I have created here 2 times 2 variables, right? I create this one. It is going here to this default, calling this default constructor. I'm the default constructor, and this one, when we create this variable, it goes here and creates I'm the default constructor. And very important, there is, of course, you realized again, there is something new with this constructor. So this constructor has is a function, but has very different behaviors. What is new again here? Again, something new. The new thing is when you create this variable, like I did before with this Wonder Woman or with this coder lamp, we are not calling active this constructor. Normally you would call a variable by yourself, right? We would call in main this variable, or we would get a normal, for example, we could call the other function with the access specifier, like so. Now you can see I have here other functions, this getter, this turn lamp on, off, and I can call them here. Turn, for example, then lamp off. That will turn now my lamp off when I start this one. You see, this is normally a function call. Lamp is now turned off. But interesting is the constructor here, we are not calling it at all. And that is also a special case. It is only used, this constructor is called by the compiler. Let's say it is searched by the compiler when you try to create this variable. And this variable, like all time, it's called here an object. I call it variable, makes it easier. And the variable you won't use, right? You won't use this variable. And the compiler is trying to search this constructor. And it is, if it's find this function constructor, it is calling it. So the compiler will either find a constructor and will call it, or it will not find a constructor and it will create an implicit constructor, which is empty, which has nothing here, but it looks like this one here, and it will create for you one. So now that was a default constructor, but let's jump here to the default section, and there is one more important aspect about a default constructor which I have to mention here, which is here. This default constructor, let's read it here. A default constructor is a constructor which can be called with no arguments, and this is this case here. And this is actually also our case. We have a constructor with no arguments, right? Arguments means here no parameters and we have nothing put in. But important is can be called with no arguments. And here what it says here, either defined with an empty parameter list, which we did, or, and now this or is important, with default arguments provided with every parameter. And that's very important. What I mean with what it means is you can provide your parameters, but if you provide your parameters in this constructor, and this round brackets here, they need all, but really all default parameters. If then it is sure, then it will be treated as a default constructor. Let's make an example to see it, what we need. Let's copy this one. I copy, see, so you can see I did exactly the same thing like here. I have here this lamp, and now I use this parameter list, but I still want to make a default constructor, not a non-default constructor, still a default constructor, which the only difference is now I want to provide some parameters. And why you should want to provide normally parameters, the reason for that is, for example, to initialize here some variables. It could be, let's initialize, for example, this name and this voltage. So I need a string and a double. Let's provide this as this string, and let's call this, what was this lamp name? Lamp name param. And let's make a double. What was the other one? Voltage param. Voltage param. All right. And this one here, what you see right now, it's not a default constructor, careful. Because like it says, it must be provided with default arguments. Arguments mean just default values. So we have to provide here for every parameter, really, if you have any, then you provide any value, default value. For example, I am default, let's write here default string. Now let's say here default lamp name, and let's write provide here also default value, which is let's make that 4.5 here. All right, and now this both are default default constructors, but we have a problem. What is here the problem? This is a default constructor, and this is a default constructor. We have now two, and when we have two, you can see we have a problem, because this line here, this red scribble, it says when we read it, class electrician lamp, which I created, has more than one default constructor. You can have only one default constructor. So you can't have two default constructors. You have now to decide which one you want to use as a default constructor. You want this one or you want this one. And most time you would go for this one. Why that? Why not go for this one? Because no, that's not true. Most time you would go for this one, and this one here you can define yourself. Yeah, it's just style, what you want to do in your code actually. But this one here is just convenient if you want just use here some default parameters, and if not, then not. So anyway, that's very important. The normal case is this one here, I would say, because the other case here which with these parameters, it's normally used for, let's say, non-default constructors, and that means we are not providing any default values. Because this one here is most time, you will see most time this one here, but careful, all time when you see the lamp here, this name here, it is a constructor, and then you have to just to distinguish. And in my case, I will just comment this out because it's not wrong. It is just we have to choose one constructor, and I'm choosing now this one here. And one more thing, of course, with this default constructor here, you could set here the values as well. And let's see, I won't not talk too much because there is much to talk about. Let's see if I have to do something more. I think that's enough. We will continue here a little bit more. And yeah, we will continue in the next with non-default constructors. And I hope it was not too complicated. You can see the thing what do you have to know is when you create a variable, let's create here one more variable. Why not? We are absolute. We should train a little bit. We create the type is my lamp type, and this time is Maggie's lamp. And now you can see. By the way, let me show you this one here. Control C, and now here Control uncomment. Let's make this one here. And now you can do something like that. Of course, you can call this thing here with values. For example, let's call it. I need a string and I need a voltage. Okay, but it's doing nothing. But anyway, I still can call it. Let's call it Maggie's lamp. Of course, I have to use Maggie's lamp and 6.5. all right, and you can see this would be a call for a default constructor like this one with providing here some values. We will talk about this here a little bit more in the next video when we talk also about non-default constructors, but you can see this one is still a default call here, providing here some values. Interesting is also you can, yeah, I think we will talk this in the next video, how you can set this, initialize this, and all this kind of stuff. Important is only here that you understand a class has a constructor. Even if it's not provided, it will create a default constructor, and you can create your variable. That's it. And this constructor is very important. It has not the same form like a normal function, and you have just to learn this. Don't be irritated all the time when you see the class name here anywhere in your code. It means it is the constructor. All right, I think that's enough for this one. So I want not to make it too complicated because there are many informations, and it will get even more next. All right, with that said, I hope you get better. Don't worry, we will learn this step by step with many examples, not too fast, because it will become a little bit more complicated, but that's why I make it slow and steady. And later, even if it's complicated, it will be very easy because we make it not too fast. With that said, if you have any questions, any complaints like all time, write it in the comments. See you in the next. Don't give up. We get better and better. And soon we are super. Bye, good luck, and have fun.